Welcome to the Dryad membership meeting. And we have a number of folks online, so I'm going to remind all of us to use the microphones up here that are connected to the streaming system as appropriate. This one's on, so we're good. You can check and see if those are on if you so desire.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Okay. So, drum roll, please. Awesome. Yes. We have the results of the election. We have two individuals who have been reelected. Surprise, surprise. Theo Bloom, welcome back. Surprise, surprise. Liz Ferguson, welcome back. And we have two new members, Lynn Baird from University of Idaho Library, and then Amelia Bruna, who is editor with Biotropica and also associated with the University of Florida. So, and thanks, Bill and others that served on the nominating committee. We appreciate the input and help that was provided there. Special thanks to two individuals, Marcel Holyoke and Brian Lavoie, whose terms have ended, and they've gone on to their retirement years from the board and are kicking up their feet in hammocks somewhere. Let's see, the other news is the bylaw changes were all approved, and I think those are the major official pieces of business. We're going to go through a number of different activities here. We're going to go through a little bit about the state of the organization, a little bit about features proposed for the long term, and seek some input from you all. There are a couple of things to do in the interim, though. First of all, I just want to apprise you of what's taken place over the last few days and why some of us look a little bit bleary-eyed. But we've gone through 3+ days now of intensive board meetings, and 2 days of which were devoted to a 5-year strategic planning effort. And I think we can all agree that it was an incredibly intense, exciting, and productive 2 days of strategic planning. And we have, I think, a very good plan for supporting the continued growth and evolution of Dryad over the next 5 years plus. We were really grateful to have not only the board members present for that, but also several staff members contributed to that effort as well, namely Ryan, Christine, and our executive director, Laura Wendell. Which brings me to a couple of things. One, I want to ask Laura to come up here and say a couple words about the some changes or terms of service issues that have come up and seek your input. But first I want to announce that she will also be retiring. She's following Marcel and Brian off into the hinterlands to kick her feet up on hammocks for a while. And we have greatly, greatly enjoyed and appreciated her service and efforts on behalf of Dryad. She's been here during an incredible growth period. She's responsible for getting all of our policies and procedures and the whole basic foundation of the office in place, sustainable for the long term, and we are really in a good situation, for continued growth. I want to announce also that we have a job description up on our website. It's also up on Data One website as well, so please feel free to check that out. Send word around to those of your close colleagues or individuals that are young, enthusiastic, and ready to lead a very strong organization into the future. So anyway, Laura, if you'll come up and talk a little bit about the terms of service, and then I want to present you with this card right now of appreciation, and we have something else is on the way. It will be at your doorstep at your house very soon.
Uh-oh. Is that you, is it, Bill? Good. So, and I don't, I need to tell you about some changes that have been proposed to the Dryad Terms of Service. And we sent these out with the ballot information to the membership just to invite and seek input from the greater community. The basic gist of these changes was that we made our language about how we detect, mitigate, and generally protect ourselves against security intrusions at Dryad. And we had a very firm, strong plan in place, but we've just strengthened the language in the terms of service to clarify a couple of points in that area. And we added a clause at the request of some of our publishing partners, just to make it clear that by paying for or sponsoring data deposits, that they're not taking on an editorial role over the content that they are simply sponsoring. So those are the main gist of the changes. It's something we invite your commentary on, but we view both of these changes as being of general overall benefit to our service users of all sorts. So if you have any comments about those, please feel free to send them along to director@datadryad.org or in any of the other many ways that you can contact us through our website. And we'll continue to allow comment on that for a few more weeks and then assume that we need to make those changes final. So I'm going to turn it back over to, is it Ryan or is Todd? Okay. Before I do, I just want to say that it's been an incredible pleasure and privilege to work with everyone on the Dryad team. And after 3 days of strategic planning, I am absolutely certain that the organization is well positioned for a period of more astronomical growth and can't wait to see where we are a year from now. So.
Thanks so much, Laura. I can't imagine what it's going to be like without you for the next few months, but we'll muddle through. So some of you have received the State of Dryad report that was sent to the membership and to other Dryad users, and I'll just give an overview of that and talk about some of the highlights that we didn't have time to discuss this morning that may be of interest to people. So Dryad continued to make significant progress in the past year toward becoming sustainably funded and independent nonprofit. Obviously, the most important thing from that regard is that we introduced membership and submission fees in 2013. We now have over 30 fee-paying member organizations, societies, publishers, a U.S. Federal Research Agency, a research network in Canada, research library, University of Rochester. So we're beginning to see the diversification of sponsors, which is a very encouraging sign, and segueing from our initial core of just working with individual journals. As of the end of February, there were submissions from 62 different journals that were sponsored by 19 different organizations. A PCI compliant online payment system was introduced, and a lot of shopping cart features were built into the submission system. Ryan will talk more about some of the features that have been built in, but that was a huge undertaking, and big credit to Laura and Ryan for pulling that off. We didn't mention this morning, but to manage a lot of the business associated with membership and payment plans and customer interactions, Dryad has enlisted the Association Management Services of FASEB, the Federation for American Societies of Experimental Biology. And for the interim, while we're searching for our full-time executive director, Jennifer Pesnelli from FASEB, who's here at SSP this week, will be serving in an interim role and as our business office manager at FASEB. And that's a really valuable, they're taking care of a lot of important work for us, so it's a great relationship. On the sort of functional front, we continue to refine infrastructure for linking between articles and data. There's a web service for returning a Dryad DOI when an article DOI is sent to us, and it's being used by Elsevier. It's being used by Taylor and Francis just recently. We're seeing link outs to our content from Europe PubMed Central, some good activity, Ryan alluded to some of it, in collaboration with the ORCID Data Site Interoperability Network, allowing us to connect researchers and data to their ORCID profiles. And to promote further discoverability and soon also replication of contents, Dryad officially became a member node in Data 1, something that had been long in consummation, let's say that. And we're doing further work to escalate the functionality within Dryad for that, which would be an important partnership to continue. And one of the big strategic goals for us operationally is to make curation efficient and quality control of that. So the curation time is something that we monitor closely, how long it takes to curate a package on average. And that's been dropping steadily for the last 2 years by 25% a year, which is a good trajectory. And there's a lot of features in development which will make that even better, to build in the functionality directly into the curation interface so that they can do the work they need to do. So those are sort of main organizational points. The State of Dryad has a list of the journals that were integrated in 2013. If folks are interested, there have been a number that have been integrated since then that are of interest. And let's see, what else do I want to point out here? I haven't already said. In the appendix to the report, there is a statement of the financials for Dryad. So if people are interested, this is as of December 2013. So our fiscal year for the nonprofit is July 1st to June 30th. But we've gotten into the custom of providing an annual report that's publicly accessible that goes from January 1st to December, so that in this May meeting, we can report a complete year. So the financials go through December. And as you can see, the revenue from data processing charges and memberships has been pretty successful. So as of the end of December, there were total assets of almost $70,000. That's almost doubled, I think, since that time. And so we're in very good financial position going forward, and that's allowed us to open this position for a full-time executive director that's basically paid from the nonprofit fund. So we're beginning to sever the dependence on grant funding for key staff on Dryad, which is a main goal of the next year. And I think, let me see. Yeah, okay, I think that's all I wanted to say there. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan now, who will give a summary of some of the features that have been developed in the past year and get your feedback on the roadmap for the coming year.
Every time you use a different version of PowerPoint. Okay, so this is the presentation I gave earlier. I've just slightly expanded it, so I was just going to flip through here, kind of remind you. In the past year, we've enhanced some of the workflow for different journal practices. As Todd mentioned, we introduced this shopping cart system to manage our payments. We became live within Data 1 and having our content preserved and replicated in clocks. We did experimental work with the Odin project associated with ORCID and DataSite. And then things I didn't talk about this morning. So last May at the annual meeting in Oxford, we rolled out a new design for the website. So that was not the end of work on the website. Work on refining the website continued for several months after that meeting, including a lot of accessibility work so that we could be compliant with all of the federal accessibility guidelines here in the US. And at the request of some of our journal partners, we introduced a new tool on the website, which is a calculator that helps you choose which payment plan is the most cost-effective for you. We did, even after we introduced the payment system, we've been continually working to build out some of the administrative features around that, and that work still continues today. Automating some of the reporting and making it easier for the Dryad staff to manage the payments in our custom shopping cart system. And as we've been scaling up, especially now that the scaling up is associated with people giving us real money, by golly, they expect real service. So when bug reports come in, we have to pay a lot of attention to those and be very responsive. So a lot of effort has gone into fixing bugs, both for the end users who are submitting the data and the curators who are helping to process the data once it gets to us. And then another big development activity over the past year has been supporting some of the staff changes. So we did have a change in our head curator, and that actually happened twice this year for complex personnel reasons. But on the more positive side, we also have increased the size of our development staff. And so we've been streamlining some things and really building out the staff support to be able to bring people on more quickly. Okay, so these are the features in development that I mentioned this morning. Things that are also in development that are targeted at the next year, we really want to build out some of the support for larger files. You heard some of that discussion regarding the Dataverse and OJS connection. So it is still painful to upload a 10 gigabyte file through a normal web interface. So we have to route users through a secondary system and have them give us a file on the side, and then we push it into Dryad. We really want to build that transfer service directly into the Dryad interface. We're also working on plans for allowing people to submit something if their manuscript is in review, and then if the manuscript is rejected, we want the users to be able to just leave their data package in place but transfer it to a new journal. So there are some complexities there because different journals have different payment plans within Dryad. So we have to do all the processing that says, well, if you gave us money, then we'll refund your money if the journal ends up paying for it, or if the journal was paying for it in the first place and the new journal isn't, then. So we're working through all of those issues. We're also building out some more excuse me, automated reporting systems. So our curators send out weekly reports to the journals to inform them of how many notifications we've received of articles in various statuses, how many articles have actually, how many data packages have been published as a result of the journal notifying us that articles are accepted. We want to make those types of reports as automated as possible to reduce any possibility for human error and further improve the efficiency of our curators' time. Another big feature that we're working on is putting a lot of the journal settings back into control of the journals. So right now, when a journal integrates with Dryad, there's a lot of discussion that has to take place telling us which personnel at the journal will receive these reports, what particular settings the journal wants to support within Dryad, whether they want to allow their users to submit data for review purposes or not. So we're moving a lot of that into controls in the Dryad system that we can more easily control through the user interface, and then eventually build out a page that we can give the journal editors access to and just let the journal editors change those settings whenever they like. As Todd mentioned, we've started the process of moving a lot of our subscription and payment plan administration off to FASIB. So there's some technical work involved there in making sure that the core Dryad system can talk with the FASEB system and everything stays synchronized. We're also doing some software upgrades. Dryad is based on the open source DSpace software. We haven't done a major upgrade of the underlying DSpace in a couple of years now, and so we're beginning work to bring us current and hopefully set us up so that we can stay current with DSpace upgrades in the future. And then finally, we've just recently released a new configuration for Dryad to make it much easier to have someone install their own copy of Dryad. Primarily, we've done this for our own internal purposes. As we bring on more development staff, we don't want staff members to have to spend a day or two to set up their own copy of Dryad for doing development work. But that also means that we can open it up to the greater community and allow community developers to really play around with their own copy of the Dryad software and make it more easy for them to submit changes to us.
Right.
Yes.
Could we get a microphone up?
I'm curious, what kind of external developer contributions do you get currently?
Okay, so the question was, what kind of external contributions do we get? And right now, those are primarily limited to feature suggestions and bug reports.
Right.
We have had some people offer to do work for us. I know that I had an offer of someone to automate some processing on our documentation,
Right.
but I didn't actually get follow-up on that, so it didn't happen.
Okay. Sorry, a brief follow-up if you don't mind. To what extent do you basically use kind of core DSpace hooks in a way that you could theoretically benefit from additional DSpace features without having to do additional work to make them part of Dryad?
So the way that DSpace is architected doesn't really allow hooks.
Okay.
In a sense, whenever we make a change to Dryad, we have to recompile all of DSpace, and the Dryad changes get compiled in with that.
Okay.
So hopefully bringing us up to speed with the current version of DSpace. So DSpace 4.0 was released last fall, and that includes a little bit better API for the core DSpace components. Hopefully we can start programming more to that API and not disturb as much of the internal DSpace as we have been in the past.
Right. I was speaking from Fedora experience, so sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
Okay. So there's a link here to Trello. It's not a link you'd like to write down, but the same link is also available from the Dryad website. If you go to the main Dryad website and you go to the menu option about repository features, there are links to some of the internal developer resources, including this Trello system. So Trello is where we really prioritize the day-to-day feature development that's happening within Dryad. And this is a great place, if you're really interested in following along with what we're doing, you can see what features are actually in progress, what features are in the holding queue. And if you click around more, there's not just this one board that is the main board that we work from, but hopefully you can get back. There we go. If you follow the link here to the main Dryad organization, you can see we have other boards where we're staging all of the features that we'd like to be able to move on to the main board in the future. So, of course, I do want to encourage people to use the feedback site and the feedback ideas forum that I presented earlier, but if you really want to get deep down into the details, that's all openly available. Any questions on features past or present? If not, I'm always available. You can send an email directly to me, ryan@datadryad.org. If you don't know who to send an email to, come to this feedback page, and there is a email address, help@datadryad.org, and of course, many other forms of contact.
All right, thanks.
Back to you.
So we thought we'd close the meeting with just opening it up for a general discussion. One major thing that's happened in the past year that we'd love to get input on from members of the community is how the rollout of the payment plan has gone down with your user communities and so on. So that's one topic. If you have feedback on that, we'd be really interested to hear it. But any question or discussion thing that we should be taking on board as an organization is open. Yes?
If you're watching from the live stream, if you want to put your comment or question into the chat window, we'll be able to take questions from the live stream audience as well.
Don't be shy. Yeah. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, anything from afar? Ryan? No. Okay. Hi. Repeat the question.
Bill asked if people have actually used the calculator. Yes, extensively they do. And sometimes they have custom questions and need, some additional pricing, but they do use it frequently, and they often email for further instruction after they've already looked at the calculator, and that's been a great help.
We've begun to do a bit of user testing at the meetings when we go and bring booths, and so one useful point of feedback might be there particular things that you think might be confusing for users. So for instance, at the upcoming conference we're going to ask users if they can tell us, for a given journal, is it sponsored? When do they submit? Is it before review, after review? Can they find that information, or is it too confusing for them? Things like that you think might be of interest to users, we'd love to hear. Nothing wrote? Okay.
Does anyone, just before we close, does anyone have any suggestions or things they would like to see at next year's membership meeting? If that was what you were going to say, Bill, I don't know. But our next membership meeting will be in May. We have them in May every year. We don't yet have a date and a venue for that one, but stay tuned. We'll have that shortly. And we would appreciate any suggestions from all of you. If you enjoyed this program, let us know. If there are topics you would like us to cover next time, please let us know. We're very open to suggestions and partnering with other data service providers of all types. And we want to really make it a forum that's of great interest to our user community and our partners everywhere. So let us know.
Follow up with that. It'll be useful if any of you have some suggestions. Maybe you can look through your calendar to see what's on tap for next May. So if you're aware of conferences or meetings that are already in place that we might want to tag onto to leverage and expand the community participants of this, we're certainly very open to those suggestions. Please feel free to provide any of us with feedback. I guess without further ado, we'll call the meeting to a close. And thank you all very much.